Last night on Raw, Edge, WWE Hall of Famer, former 11-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, made his triumphant return to the red brand. Yes, Edge is back on Monday Night Raw after returning Sunday night at the Royal Rumble. 9 years. Can you believe it? It's been 9 years already since he was forced to retire due to his neck injuries. He was medically disqualified from ever competing in a WWE ring again. Now, before we get into the segment itself, let's sort of do a bit of a preamble here of how they set up his segment. So throughout the show last night on Raw, you had what they showed as Edge moments, which included the TLC 2 match at WrestleMania 17, Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase at New Year's Revolution 2006 on John Cena to become the WWE Champion for the first time, his win at the Royal Rumble in 2010, and then finally his retirement in 2011. They also showed his return at the Royal Rumble last night. So they kind of showed the span of Edge's career. I mean, to us diehard fans, we know who Edge is. I think even the casual viewer probably knows who Edge is. But let's be honest, he's been out of the ring for 9 years. There's going to be a portion of the WWE fan base that has never seen Edge compete before. They would have seen his rare occasional appearances when he does the cutting edge. So this was also a way to reintroduce him to the WWE audience that hasn't seen Edge compete before. So this happens throughout the show, and at the end of the show we have Edge, his segment. He comes out, crowd chants Edge. He's very emotional from the beginning, and can you blame him? Can you imagine being told that you can't do what you love to do, and then nearly 10 years later you're told actually you can do it again? And at the age of 46, Edge looks great. He's in the best condition of his life, and he quite literally has a second lease on life in his career again. He talked about the wrestlers being artists, and the reaction that he got at the Royal Rumble was the reason why they, as professional wrestlers, do this, for those type of reactions. The crowd, of course, does the almost traditional point when someone returns now of the "you still got it" chants. He says, of course he does. He also explained and went into a bit of depth as to why or how he was able to come back. He said that after he was medically ruled out, after a while he started to feel better, and he asked the question, what if I could come back? He got a second neck surgery, busted his ass, and got into the best shape of his life. And if you can't disagree with him on that last point of being in the best shape of his life, I posted a picture on social media at Twitter, 365Wrestle, little plug in there, about how good a shape he's in right now. He's without a doubt, for me, the best shape of his life, his career. He's absolutely ripped. He's got full-on abs. There was a funny moment in the Royal Rumble with Randy Orton coming up to him going, oh my God, you look so shredded. Absolutely true. So he says after he had the surgery, got into the best shape of his life, he did it all so he could end his career on his terms, which is pretty much as a shoot as you're going to get. When you're told you can't do what you want to do anymore. And I know people would say, well, in terms of retirements, how they went, wrestling your last match at WrestleMania, retiring as the world champion isn't a bad way to go out, and it isn't. But there's a difference between retiring on your own terms and then being told you have to retire. And if this last run, which I'm assuming this will be his last run, he signed a new contract for 3 years, but this 3-year run will be his last run without a doubt. He can end it the way he wants to end it. It's not lingering over him anymore of, well, what if I wanted to do one more match? Could I do one more match? All that sort of stuff. He also talked about seeing older new faces in the Royal Rumble match, talked about Randy Orton, talked about seeing the likes of Matt Riddle, AJ Styles. He said he hopes to see them sometime down the road. And he said, look, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I hope the fans will join him on this ride. And this was a really great point in the pro where he stared straight into the hard camera and said, I have grit. If you knock him down, he will get back up, which was a little bit of a prelude to where we were going with this segment, actually, because he quite literally does get knocked down and he will eventually get back up. So that will be the story of the feud going forward with Randy Orton. So I just mentioned him there. Randy Orton, out he comes. He embraces Edge in the ring. He hugs. Edge starts crying. Orton talks about how when he was younger, he was incredibly self-destructive. And if you hear some of the stories about Randy Orton around 2005, 2006, self-destructive would be putting it mildly and very lightly. But he says the only person that could pick him up from when he was in that deep, dark hole was Edge. And he says, welcome home, Edge. And Edge starts crying. Edge, he's tearing up. And I'm sure this was very, very real for Edge, even though obviously they were going somewhere with this whole promo. I bet it wasn't hard for Edge to, get emotional because this was a special moment. Orton says the chemistry that they had between them was special, and he says, you're coming out here talking about what ifs. I've got a what if for you. What if we got Rated RKO back together one more time like they did for a brief period of time at the Royal Rumble? The crowd goes nuts. They start chanting, yes, yes, yes. They do the yes chants. And then out of nowhere, quite literally out of nowhere, Randy Orton RKO's Edge in the middle of the ring. Unbelievable. Like the crowd kind of thought maybe it was coming, but because of the emotion of the segment, they were so invested. And when that RKO hit, you could have heard a pin drop in that arena. So well done. But it doesn't end there. So after the RKO, Edge is holding his neck, and we're all worried about his neck, but it would get far worse for the Rated R superstar. Randy Orton goes out the ring, hits Edge with a chair, and then the sell job here that Edge does to sell the neck injury is phenomenal. I know he's done a lot of acting since he initially retired from the WWE, and that really showed at this point, because his selling of the neck injury, he was screaming out these loud, desperate noises of pain. It was just tremendous. And when Orton hit him with the chair, like I said with the RKO, the crowd just went quiet. And when Orton was leaning back to eventually hit him with the chair, I mean, he took his time to get the chair itself, and the whole crowd was thinking, oh no, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And then once he did hit it, again, you heard these just shrieks of pain, not only from Edge, but also from the crowd. They were in their head, they know that this is a work, but they're like, this guy's got neck issues. You're hitting him with a chair, and they were just beside themselves. Orton then puts Edge's head in a chair, sort of a Pillmanizer version, but it's on his neck. WWE did a great job here with the camera work as well. They zoomed in on Edge's hands. We were trembling like you would have with like a neck injury. You'd have numbness in your fingers and your hands and your arms, and they showed Edge's hands trembling from the chair shot. I mean, it was tremendous. The crowd at this point is going nuts, screaming, no, don't do it, don't do it. Orton goes to the top rope. He's taking his time, slowly standing up, and you're thinking, oh my God, he's going to jump on his neck. But then he jumps back down. He says he's not going to do it, and everyone sort of breathes a sigh of relief. But it's not over. He goes and gets a second chair, puts the chair under Edge's head, and hits him with a concerto. And the crowd, once again, just as he's winding up to do it, the crowd is saying, no, don't do it, don't do it. And once he did do it, the crowd just goes silent. It was so uncomfortable. It was so on the edge of your seat. The emotion in that segment before the attack was off the charts, and then post the attack was off the charts. Like I said, it was uncomfortable. There was silence. The selling from Edge, the facials from Randy Orton, the crowd reaction, as close as perfection you can get for me for a segment just in general, but especially a closing segment. To me, that's the best Raw closing segment in about 6 years, since the Daniel Bryan, Bray Wyatt cage match segment Aftermath, where Daniel Bryan showed that he wasn't a member of the Wyatt family, and you had the crowd chanting yes when he's on the top of the cage. And I mean, that was a goosebumps moment, but so was last night. So for me, like I said, it was the best Raw closing moment in about 6 years, and maybe even longer than that. And just what a way to start the road to WrestleMania. It's obvious now. There were rumours about who Edge would face when he returned, or who he would face at WrestleMania. Obviously, if he's going to come back, he's definitely not going to miss WrestleMania, is he? So he's definitely going to compete at WrestleMania. And initially, when I heard Randy Orton's name mentioned, because you got to remember a couple of weeks ago when he did that fake injury angle of AJ Styles, he name-dropped Edge and mentioned about him having to do retirement speeches. So the seeds were planted from a couple of weeks ago. And initially, when I heard Orton drop Edge's name in that segment, I wasn't super keen on it, because we've seen it before. And yes, their history and their teammates and Rated RKO. But if Edge did, at the time, I was like, well, if Edge is going to return, you want to see Edge face new guys. You don't want to see him face people he's faced before. But man, did my mind change after seeing that segment last night. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was perfection. Edge talked about being an artist, but that was artistical magnificence. It was great. And I can't wait not only to see the match at WrestleMania, because I think it'll be great because of the emotion that's invested in it now, but just where they go now with the storyline, because the storyline now is just going to be fantastic. You can just, it's not only is it different, but it's real and it's raw and it's emotional. Randy Orton, for me, has always done his best work as a heel. Not like a heel when he was with the Authority, but when he's this vicious, calculated, on the edge of doing something crazy because you don't know what he's going to do, or sort of a loose cannon-ish vibe, that's when he does his best work. And this was the best Randy Orton heel work we've seen in the longest time, probably back to the 2009 Randy Orton during the feud with Triple H on the road to WrestleMania 25. That sort of just evil, sadistic, calculated heel. That's Randy Orton at his best. And like I said, Edge is now, because of this phenomenal, at one point impossible comeback, is just the ultimate babyface, isn't he? And the way he sold that chair shot of the trembling hands, the screams of pain that he let out, it was just phenomenal. Now, post-Raw, once the Raw went off the air, they did a stretcher job as well to sell Edge's injuries. He had the neck brace on, he was on the stretcher, he was wheeled out, so they carried that on. And it's not often, I was thinking about this, it's not often in modern wrestling where, kayfabe's dead now. Everyone knows it's a work. Even the most casual of casual wrestling fans know that professional wrestling's a work, and it's entertainment, shall we say. So kayfabe's dead. It's dead. And when you're there at an event, you're watching a show. So it's not often in modern wrestling where kayfabe is dead that you have a crowd just crying out for their beloved babyface not to get injured, not to get hurt like they had last night. I mean, these were legitimate cries out of, don't do it, Randy, don't do it, or protect Edge, he's got a bad neck, you could paralyze him. It was just, like I said, it was uncomfortable, and that's good. I praised the Bray Wyatt Daniel Bryan match this past weekend at the Royal Rumble because it was uncomfortable. Any television show, regardless if it's professional wrestling or not, if it makes you feel a certain type of emotion, or it makes you invested because it's either uncomfortable or it's funny or whatever, that's good TV. And last night was phenomenal TV. Forget about professional wrestling, it was good television. So where do they go from here? Obviously, it hasn't been announced, but they're going to be facing off at WrestleMania without a doubt. What's next for Edge? I don't think he'll be on TV for the next few weeks, at the very least. Obviously, this is a stretch job. If he comes out next week, then kind of defeats the purpose of the angle. He signed a new 3-year contract, but it's a similar sort of contract. I don't want to say to like a Brock Lesnar, but that kind of thing. It's part-time. He's going to appear on certain TVs throughout the year. He's going to appear at certain pay-per-views throughout the year, wrestling matches. So I would suspect that they have Edge off TV for the next month or so to sell the injury, and then he could come back around, I don't know, Elimination Chamber time, so after the Super Showdown show in Saudi Arabia. So Elimination Chamber, I believe, is at the start of March. So maybe he comes back around March, he skips out February, and during that time, Randy Orton continues to heal it up. Like next week for me, the perfect opening to Raw next week would be to have Randy Orton in the middle of the ring. They black out the arena, just a spotlight on him, and he's maybe sitting on the chair that he attacks Edge with, or he has the other chair in his hand, and he explains his reasonings for why he turned his back on Edge. I don't know what they'll be. I don't know if it's just because Edge eliminated him in the Royal Rumble or whatever. But I'm invested in this. I'm looking forward to this, and I can't wait for the match at WrestleMania. What a way to start WrestleMania season. But what did you think of the segment last night? Let me know in the comments below of your opinion of the segment last night. How do you think the match is going to go at WrestleMania? When is Edge going to be back next? So many questions. Tell me your answers below. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon.